I'm Michael,
And I'm Erin,
and you're watching.
the early show.
Ta-da!
Ta-da.
Magical.
Here we are. Welcome to the early show.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so nice to be back together. We're both wearing our hats today for our wonderful theme, which is
Making.
making, which kind of seems broad, but we'll get into exactly what we mean by making.
Yeah, making things. Making anything.
Yeah, exactly. I actually specifically wore this beautiful hat because this was made by the one and only Rio Branner, who, of
Um,
course, makes amazing hats. So this is like a Russian beret. So I feel like I'm in like the Russian mob or the army or something.
well, mine is a cheap hat I got as a gift from somebody who loves me.
Well, there you go. Making anything fabulous, hey?
What do you mean making anything fabulous?
Everything fabulous. You just said it's a cheap hat. I'm saying
Oh, I thought you meant the hat made me fabulous. Oh, that hat'll make anything fabulous, even you.
no, 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 honey. You're the fabulous one. Your hat is cheap, okay?
So making.
Yeah, making. So I thought maybe I was kind of saying before we got started that all of these wonderful viewers out there, they probably have a fairly good sense of what it is that Michael makes. But I do making similar to Michael. But I thought maybe I would just tell people that I also am a writer and a performer. And I write poems and stories, and but I mainly do a lot of spoken word poetry. And that has taken on the shape of most of my making over the last like 10, 15 years of my life. But before that, I
And you
did
and you do a lot of improv performance, right?
do, yeah. And that was sort of where I think making started for me was as a young person, I didn't write anything. I was always on the stage and I was always in improv
Oh,
and acting and theater and directing. So the stage was like my first love, and then it kind
I
of
didn't
shifted.
know that.
Yeah, shifted to writing. I think that's why when I met you, like back in God, what was that, 2007 or something, that you were such a breath of fresh air for me as somebody who was doing both. You weren't just writing or in the theater world exclusively. You were kind of moving in between.
Right. I was a making slut.
Yeah. And you still are, really. Like,
Oh, I'm an
and
even sluttier maker. I get it stuck everywhere. It goes in one way and out the other.
yeah, all that making.
I think my metaphors are getting mixed, but you know what I mean.
I do. You're great.
It's true. I love making. The older I get, the more things I discover I enjoy doing. My favorite things to make are things that involve my hands.
Right.
I'm super verbal, but I actually really love crafty. That's why this show's been fun. Like, even just making my little signage stuff, like, it makes me so happy to cut paper and write markers on things. And
Yeah. And it's little things like that that if you have been a professional maker or artist for many years, you probably, I know I can do this to myself, where you don't validate that type of making because maybe it's not the professional making you're accustomed to. But man, it's the greatest type of making, in fact.
that's why, where's my sewing machine? That's why, oh, it's hidden behind there. That's why my sewing machine's my favorite thing, because I don't actually know very much of how to sew. I learned how to sew in grade 7 and 8 from Madame Laflèche.
Yeah.
And she taught me things when I was a preteen, and that's the only lessons I've ever had. So I don't actually know quite what I'm doing, but I
Right.
have so much fun because I can let all the sort of perfectionism or the worries about, like, I always know the things I make aren't perfect, but whenever I sew, I don't try to do things perfect because I know it's impossible.
Yeah.
But when I write things, I always think, oh, I could make it better if only I was smarter. Why am I so stupid? And that doesn't happen with me when I make things with my hands.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of the things that I love about improv is that it's like this spontaneous making that it quite literally is based off of the imperfections. We were just
Mm,
talking bit about those jokes that present themselves, and it's like it's dangling right in front of you, and you right?
Okay, well, let's go straight into hot tips then, because that's my first hot tip.
Okay.
My hot tip is you need to prepare yourself for the lack of perfection.
Right.
The best way to make is what my mom used to say to me in high school: it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be done.
Right.
And once you've done it, then you can make it better.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
just get a shit draft out.
Yeah. Yeah, who there is that famous quote Cole always references. I don't know who said it, but don't let the perfect get in the way of the finished.
Mm,
And it's that kind of idea as well, where I think we get so caught up on some idea that we have of this end goal. And if we don't work our way rapidly or seamlessly towards that, then we give up pretty easily, I think. And I
well,
know that with projects lots and throughout my life.
well, that's my second hot tip. My second hot tip is don't let the idea of the thing interfere with the thing itself. And I like to tell my students this all the time, that you always make two drafts of anything. As a writer, you're always making at least two versions. There's the original version that you have in your head, there's the thing you conceive of that you want to make, and then you put it down on paper, you manifest it, and that thing is no longer the thing that was in your head. It is an entirely different beast. So you
Right.
need to abandon your original idea and see the thing that you actually made. Because, and this is my, I guess maybe my third hot tip, the unconscious and the random play in the making of a thing. and
Right.
and that's where some of the best work comes from the it's the patterns that your subconscious or unconscious mind creates that you can't anticipate, where the best work materializes.
Right.
If you try to put the patterns in, it's going to be predictable, but your unconscious puts patterns in that you can't predict because you're not in control of your blind spots. And
Yeah.
those are the patterns, the ones that surprise you. Those are the ones that have the most fuel, the
Right.
most chemistry, the most magic. So you need to see the thing that you made to recognize what it is and make it its best self, and not compare it to the original thing, which is now done. That blueprint is over. It's
Yeah.
like the script of the play is not the thing you perform,
Yeah.
so you need to be alive in the moment.
Right. It sounds a lot like parenting. You have to release your idea of who your child is and instead allow them to be what they are and what they present to you. If you're willing
Right.
to see them for
You
what they
coach
are.
it, and yeah, you
Yeah,
coach it and guide it, and you
yeah,
release
yeah.
and
And that
witness and respond.
kind of making and those ideas I think hold true not even just to art or children, but also our gardens and dinner. Sometimes you start making and you throw shit in the pot and suddenly you have one of the best meals you've ever made, and it's so far from maybe the original idea or plan, and that's the spontaneity and the improv of listening to what's going on.
One of my favorite tools. I teach when I'm teaching my students, I also talk about listening.
Yeah.
It's that weird thing, and that's why improv is so great, right? Because it's just an exercise in listening.
Yeah. And listening in connection to hearing, which of course are not always the same thing. One can listen without hearing. Children
Yeah,
prove.
yeah, paying attention to the now. What's in this moment? What's right here? Like,
Yeah, totally. Some of my hot tips, I find that it's kind of akin to when people say if you're struggling with sleep, you need to only sleep in your bed. Um, I always try to have a space where I work out of. That seems to be something that even on my worst days when I don't want to make, I don't feel like doing much. If there's a space that I have that's set out, even if that's like a coffee shop or an office at work or a tiny, my desk is in my bedroom, but it still has and holds certain books and certain writing utensils that I really like to use. And these things are almost like habitual or ritualistic entry points for me into making.
I used to listen to the exact same album when I would sit down or work on a novel. Every
Yeah.
day I'd pick an album, and every day I'd start with that album, and I'd work beyond it, but it was a like a device to get
Yeah.
me back in the mood.
It's so funny. I actually did that when I was in Banff at the writing studio last year. I was listening to this one Songs Oh High record on repeat over and over and over again. And then, tonally that album is so sad that all the poems ended up being sad. So now I have to shift and find something that's a little bit more upbeat for the next set of poems. But I agree, it's this kind of entry point anyways. It's sort of,
Well,
like going for a run. It's those first putting your runners on and your running outfit and getting out there is actually
it's that
awesome
training, yeah.
step,
You
right?
train your brain to be accustomed. People say that it helps if you're certainly a new maker. I find it easier now. I know where that space is, but when I first started, I would pick, like, I wrote every morning. So I'd wake up and have breakfast, and I'd sit at the computer, and the time I noticed, if I did something else on some other day, my brain was really creative in that moment, like going to the dentist,
Right.
because it was just used to being creative at that time of day. You train your brain for that
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Routine.
Yeah. And then my other one that I've had to really learn and embrace throughout my years of especially professional making is to lower my expectations.
It's
It's
just like
very
having kids and marriage.
well, that's
You're so
exactly
right.
that's a lot of it comes from like, you get to a point and you haven't gotten any sleep or your children are driving you insane or whatever it might be, all of the reasons that we're all so busy. And I would beat myself up. I'd be like, why am I not writing every single day? Why am I not doing and accomplishing these things that I
Mm-hmm.
want for myself? And I found that actually hindered my process of making and getting creative and feeling inspired more than it was helping me. So if I
Right.
took away some of these really, really high, lofty expectations I had of myself as a maker, it allowed the fun and the enjoyment of making to come back into my process, which then of course leads to an abundance of making when you all you want to do is spend that time making, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my last bit of advice actually comes from my mentor and good friend Rawl James, who says it at the end of every single Inspired Word Cafe event, which is to be gentle with yourself. I think it's really easy to like write a new poem and then immediately go like, that's shit. That's awful. I hate it. And I don't want anybody to look at it. Cole told me the other day that I had left my little notebook sitting out and he read one of my like scrap poems and I was mortified. And then I had to realize like, why am I mortified? Like it's a scrap little moment that I wrote something down and he wants to read it because he's excited by my writing and I don't need to kind of have some kind of ego attached to this end product, but instead can enjoy and be gentle with myself through all the versions of things as I'm working on them.
Well, that's it. I love that idea that you need to detach the ego from the thing you make. The thing
Yeah.
you make is not a measure of your value,
Yeah.
even as a maker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that's hard. Like, I bet that as a teacher, you come across that a lot with
Yeah.
students where, and you can see it even through my, couple of years of being a teaching assistant up at UBC that you watch students feeling just crushed by
Mm.
workshops or by feedback. And all of the feedback is generative and productive and very rarely snide or whatever. And so but you can watch them kind of holding up their precious little baby out to the world and just being crushed if it doesn't get received the way they want it to.
I just slap that shit around.
Yeah.
I do. And
Yeah.
I do a lot of work to teach the kids how to detach
Right.
themselves. Like, I do reminders all the time. You need to
Yeah.
recognize this as a thing outside yourself, And even if it's terrible, you're still a great writer.
Yeah.
And you're a great writer because you're listening and paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes for all making. Like I have a friend who I've been so inspired by. She's not a professional artist, but she has always wanted to play the guitar. And so she's been practicing during this pandemic, playing the guitar. She sucks. And she posts every day her shitty playing on Instagram. And it's so wonderful to see. And her children have started playing with her. And you can see the joy that making and learning and practicing an art does for her in her life. And if that's not what we're all really after, even professional artists, then I think maybe we're going after the wrong things when it comes to making, you know?
It's so true.
Yeah. Okay, well, those are some good tips. I think we could talk about that for a long time, so let's not. Now, we have been playing this game that Michael created called Psych, and it is, according to Michael, designed to help us see the psychology of the topic that we are talking about. And I have not done very well at this game.
You've done excellently. You're just literal.
Yes, very literal.
We don't travel very far outside of the topic.
No, and I thought about this too when I was coming up with my own words that I was making, that maybe that's half the battle, is that we're saying very literal words and then hoping for a different response. But I went with literal anyway.
You're telling me the problem with my game is me?
I'm just, and also psych. You called it psych, but nobody psychs anybody out. I feel like, I do love the card. I wanted to play the game at least one more time so we could see that cool card.
Let's see how terrible I am at it.
Okay, here we go. Psych, around making. This is the inner workings of Michael B. Smith.
Right, and if you haven't seen it before, you say a word and I say the first thing that comes to mind.
That's right. The first thing. So no getting fancy on me here.
Penis.
Here we go.
Penis. Penis.
You're so literal. Okay, here we go. Art.
Making.
Craft.
Shit.
Tools.
Wrench.
Tricks.
Prostitution.
Fabric.
Gauze.
Pen.
Knife.
Money.
Spending.
Process.
Chicken.
Product.
Ground meat. I had to go through chicken again to get to ground meat. Sometimes when my brain needs something, it goes to chicken. Chicken is my default.
That's amazing.
It's really weird. If you're ever playing a game and you're like, I don't have a clue what the answer is going to be, you could just say chicken if you're on my team and you might be right.
Right. So what I took from your psychology here, I'm going to do a quick assessment, is that you like sex. You're a little violent. There's a couple things that were, like I said, tool, and did you say knife?
Pen knife.
Right. And then, chicken. You're hungry. I'm getting a sense that maybe you're hungry at this current moment in time. Correct me if I'm wrong. Chicken, ground turkey, lamb steaks,
sausage.
Yes, and then
all the vegetarians and vegans just turned off our show.
Yeah, they did. They're angry at us. Well, I will give it to you. I think you were more inventive than I have.
Well, it's fine. Okay, now let's play.
Michael.
Sorry, what was that?
I said we can't be great at everything.
No. Let's play my favorite game.
Sure. Okay.
Would you rather?
Would you rather? Would you rather? Here, it'll flutter like a butterfly. Doo-doo, doo-doo. Okay.
Would you rather be a butterfly or a doily?
This game actually is so popular in my house, Michael. Lennon, they're obsessed with it. They watch YouTube videos that are like 40 minutes of would you rathers.
Oh.
And it's like, who can watch that constantly?
It's a good getting to know you game.
She and my older one, Lennon, she really likes to throw that back at you. So there are a lot of would you rathers, and sometimes they're very hard things. Like, would you rather have like both your arms torn off or have your like hands put in a grinder, and you're like, Lennon, you're 9. That's enough. No more YouTube for you.
That's like John Wayne Gacy's game.
Yeah, no, she's intense.
Jesus.
We'll have to play psyche with her when she joins us later this week.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Would you rather make art for yourself or art for others?
Others.
Others? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't think that your making is for yourself first, or
Oh, no.
that's
I'm
surprising,
very corrective. I want to fix the world.
right?
I'm
So it's
perfect. I'm not making art for me.
you're also generous though. So that's all.
Well, I'm a people person. I want to fix people, like help people, do things for people, make people laugh.
Totally. Bring them together, make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite things you do.
Yeah.
Would you rather never be able to create again or have to create endlessly?
Oh, never create again.
Yeah, it'd be too much to just be expected to be making constantly.
Yes, I want more downtime. I'm closer to retirement than your average person.
Yeah, right. You're going to be one of these people who's going to be 70 and still working.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you will be.
But well, anyways, I'm cultivating having less to do.
Yeah, which is good. And maybe in your making in your retirement, we'll see, will be other things than just art.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I wonder what I'll make other than art. Refrigerators.
Oh, yes. No, you don't have the skills for that. Okay,
Well, then I could put my chicken in it.
that's right. And your sausage. Okay, would you rather be a sculptor or a painter?
Mm. I wanted to say painter, but painter.
Painter?
Yeah, because it's hard to be a sculptor when you're traveling the world, and you can be a painter anywhere.
That's true.
I like how portable painting is.
Yeah, as in terms of my visual art preference, in my own making, always go after things that are large scale. So I love paper mache. It's one of my favorite things to work with, but I
Oh,
also really love clay. Actually, did you know that my high school art teacher is Matt Rader's uncle?
no. Matt
And I
Rader, the famous poet who's a mutual friend of ours.
and so Frank Rader was my high school art
Oh,
teacher,
is he the puppet maker?
puppet maker. Yes, he was, and
Oh.
came into one of my I was in grade 10 and I was in a grade 10 art class, and he only taught the grade 12 advanced art class, and he came in and saw me drawing this realistic picture of a tiger, and he pulled me out of the grade 10 class and put me in the grade 12 class, and then he taught me how to do sculpture with clay.
Wow.
They a kiln, and it was a whole thing, and
Wow.
so yeah, I love the messiness of it.
Hmm.
Okay, would you would this I didn't write this sentence very well. Would you rather have to relearn to read or to write? Start.
Relearn to read or to write. Oh, God. I'd rather relearn how to write.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reading is hard to start again.
Yeah, that was a long process.
Do you remember learning how to read?
Yes. Oh, God, yes.
Some people it's like they have no memory of it because it was so seamless for them, but it sounds like you maybe struggled. I struggled really hard, but I didn't want to sit still, so that was my problem.
I just have a powerful memory. I remember all kinds of weird things.
Right.
Like, I remember being in spelling bees more than one. I remember more than one spelling bee, and I
Yeah.
remember doing tests, like little brief snippets of memories, writing
Right.
tests, and
Right. That's probably why you're a great storyteller, though. You catalog.
I catalog, yeah.
Totally. Okay, well, and that's it for Would You Rather here on the early show with Erin and Michael. And now, before we wrap our show, we were going to briefly kind of touch on dry spells, which could be sexual or about making.
Making dry spells. I don't ever have really dry spells.
Really?
I talk about fallow periods, that there are times where maybe I don't have a pressing project.
Right.
Like, and I worked on a novel where I didn't do anything on the novel for a year. So but that wasn't a dry spell because when I'm not doing one thing, I'm doing something else.
Right.
I always have 6 projects on the go. And so if like little things.
Right. And so do you think that that's also informed by the fact that you do a lot of different types of making? Like if you're not writing the novel, were you then making other types of art or still doing writing, but just not on this large project?
Yeah, I'm making other kinds of things, and I'll write more than one thing at a time. Like I have 3 short stories on the go, and 2 of them I don't know if I'll go back to them. I don't know, but
Right.
yeah, I'll have a million different kinds of. So if I run out of ideas on one thing, I just move to another thing and see. I'm the same way with crossword puzzles. I'll do 2 or 3 crossword puzzles at once
Oh yeah.
because I
Do
get
you,
stuck on one, and then I'll go do another one, and I'll come back and.
yeah. Do you do it when you read books as well?
Sometimes, yeah, I'll read multiple books at the same time.
Yeah. I'm no, I'm much the same. I get into and then I have to make myself focus so I can finish. But I've had quite a few like writing dry spells in my adult life, particularly after I had Lennon. I didn't actually
Mm,
think for 3 years.
wow.
Yeah, and people are always like quite surprised by that. And I thought for a bit there, like maybe that was it. Maybe writing was kind of a brief moment in my life and wasn't something I was going to do regularly. And that was quite like sombering and a lot to undertake. But then I found this really great writing group in Venice that I would go to, and it was once a week. You
Mm,
would print out 10 copies of a poem. Everyone would read on the spot and critique in 5 minutes. And so there was really low pressure. You didn't have to have done a bunch of editing for other people, but you got something out of it.
mm,
And it kind of was this sort of like resurgence into to writing again. But I was doing all kinds of other making. So I guess that's this thing that I've learned as well, kind of like you said, where if the writing making my primary kind of art form is not happening, I can almost guarantee that if I look around a little closer, I'm probably making in a multitude of other ways, whether that's like gardening, cooking and baking,
mm-hmm.
literally humans. That there are other things that, and I do really love. Me and the girls love painting. Mackenzie, my 7-year-old, is very into visual art, but she loves painting. So that's become something that we do. And much like your sewing, there's like, I don't care if I'm awful at it. I just do it for the joy of using my hands and color and
Mm.
all those kinds of lovely things. But I will say for people out there who, if they are currently in a dry spell or going kind of crazy, wondering if they're going to make art again through the pandemic, that I think there's moments where we as artists kind of sink into ourselves and are quiet and still, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
it's like plants, and then there are moments when we bloom and we come out of it and
Yeah.
we're ready.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, there are big things I've been stuck on, and so you put them aside. But that just is a matter, sometimes you just need to let time pass. It's just like raising your kids,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
that's it. And just growing as an individual yourself. I think
Hmm.
sometimes like we find that maybe we're writing the same version of a poem or a
Mm.
book over and over and over,
You
and
need
we
to
got
be a new person before you
yeah,
come back to it.
yeah, we got to get that little bit out, rest, and then come back to it.
And have fresh eyes.
And I know that that was something that a lot of my mentors, yourself included, have said to me through my writing journey as well, is that you have to live to be able to write and make art. And so if you're not living because you're so fixated on your production, then
Hmm.
it's probably not going to work.
So true.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think
Okay.
we have for today on our making conversation.
Yeah, let's high five that.
Awesome. Let's
Yay. Making bitches. Now you have all the tools you need.
yeah, forevermore. Okay, we'll see everybody soon.
Bye.